Good day, girls. Hope you all are doing well by the grace of God. Today, we shall study political science and we shall cover the topic working of the Constitution. These are the topics that we will be covering in political science for this academic year. And when you go through all these topics, you will notice that the topics are related to the working of the Indian Constitution. In your lower classes, you'll have studied civics and political science in 9th standard, and you have covered the topics such as local government, our constitution, parliamentary system, about India's foreign policy and defense system, as well as about India's relations with other countries. And this year you will be focusing on working of the Indian Constitution. So today we shall begin with the first chapter, working of the Constitution. Working of the Constitution, and in this chapter we will focus primarily on these 3 points, that is democracy, social justice and equality, and role of judiciary. So as discussed earlier, till date you have studied in civics and political science about the local government, which includes the panchayat, zilla parishad and municipality, about the values and the philosophy of the Indian Constitution, about the governing structures of the Indian Constitution, and about India's place in international relations. Indian Constitution. What is Indian Constitution? It is a book in which all the provisions regarding the administration of a country are mentioned together in a systematic way. So in simple words, it is a book in which the rules are mentioned to govern a country. So how we have a calendar in a school where there are different rules related to admissions, exams, behavior, and so on. Similarly, the rules to govern a country are mentioned in a constitution. This constitution, it came into force on 26 January 1950. The objective of the Indian Constitution is to establish a secular democratic republic. Secular means not connected to any religious or spiritual matters. The Constitution has also made important provisions so that people can easily secure justice and their freedom is also protected. The Constitution is a key element in forming a progressive developed society which is based on social justice and equality. So in this chapter we will study about the wide-ranging nature of Indian democracy, important changes that have taken place in its political process, and the steps that have been taken to establish justice and equality. So primarily we'll be focusing on 3 areas, that is democracy, social justice and judicial system. The first point is democracy. Now my question is, what is democracy? Democracy, it is a system of government where the citizens exercise power to rule the state either directly or through electing the representatives. So in democracy, now we will study the first point we will be studying under democracy is political maturity. Democracy is not just that you elect people and then they represent us in the assembly, but the significant feature of representative system is to integrate the principles into practice in our day-to-day life, and once we put these principles into practice in our day-to-day life, then it becomes an important part of the political life of society. Indian people, they have direct representation in the parliament, the state legislature and the local government. Local government includes the municipality, gram panchayat, zilla parishad. It is because we have 3 elections in India. One is for the center, one is at the state level and the other one is at the local level. An important indicator of India's successful democracy is holding free and fair elections at regular intervals. And as the people's participation is also increasing in this political process, that is, people come out and they vote. So, there is also political competition, and all this shows that the Indian democracy has become successful to a great extent. Our second point under democracy is right to vote. The Indian Constitution, it has made the provision of right to vote for adults. In the pre-independence period, that is before independence, there were many provisions which restricted the right to vote, but all these provisions were cancelled after independence. And the Indian Constitution, it guaranteed adult suffrage. Suffrage means the right to vote in political elections, and it also gave right to vote equally both for men and women who were above 21 years of age. And later this 21 years of age of voting was reduced to 18 years. And this gave opportunity of political participation to the younger generation in India. Such provisions, they have made India largest democracy in the world. India has the largest number of voters as compared to any other democratic nation. Thus, by reducing the voting age, it has not only brought a quantitative change, but it has also brought a qualitative change, because as the age was reduced, the younger generation could also participate in the elections. That is, they could become a part of the elections, and that would help them to choose a proper representative. And because of this, new political parties were also emerging with the active support of the young voters. So as new parties started emerging, these parties, they represented various expectations of people, and they also compete in the political sphere. The next point under democracy is decentralization of democracy. Indian Constitution divided the power between the center, state and local self-governing bodies. This is called decentralization of power. Decentralization means distribution. And this provision for decentralization, it implanted in the guidelines given to the Federal Institute, that is the directive principles of the state policy. And it helps to keep a check on the misuse of power, and it also allows common people's participation. The guidelines about giving authority to the local self-governing bodies are given in the directive principles of the state policies, that is the gram panchayats, zilla parishad and municipalities. They are also given authority. So the guidelines for that are given in the directive principles of state policy. And the 73rd and the 74th amendments, that is the changes to the constitution, it has given constitutional status to these local self-governing bodies, and it has also increased their powers. Right to information, RTI 2005. This right to information, it came into force in the year 2005. And according to this, giving authority to the citizens is considered the essential condition of democracy, that is, citizen empowerment. The right to information, it creates opportunities for citizens to participate and interact with the government, and this increased communication between citizens and government helps in strengthening democracy and in building a relationship of trust between the citizens and government. Right to information, it has also made the government more transparent and has reduced the element of secrecy in the working of the government. It has also made the government more accountable because transparency and accountability are the hallmarks of good governance. So the citizens, they have the right to know about the functioning of the government. After the year 2000, the whole approach towards democratic reforms has changed. Now these democratic reforms, they are considered as rights of citizens. And accordingly, citizens in India, they have got right to information, education and food security. And these rights, they have strengthened democracy in India. Rights-based approach. After independence, many changes were brought to improve the democracy. So till the year 2000, the perspective of the government towards the people was that of a beneficiary. But this attitude of the government changed and the new approach was adopted, which considered development as the right of a citizen. Rights-based approach, it has made our democracy stronger. Our next area under working of the Constitution is social justice and equality. Social justice and equality are the important objectives of our Constitution. And our Constitution has given the guidelines to establish a new society based on these two values, that is social justice and equality. So the government as well as people should strive to fulfill these objectives. How will you establish social justice? First, we should remove the conditions that are responsible for injustice. Secondly, we should insist on equality of dignity for all individuals. Thirdly, there should be no discrimination based on caste, religion, language, gender, place of birth, race and property. Equal opportunity should be given to all the individuals to achieve development, and efforts are to be made at all levels of society to establish justice and equality. And it is also important to include all sections of the society into the mainstream of democracy. Now let's see the efforts taken to reduce inequality. First, policy of reservation of seats. Reservation of seats is for those sections of a society who have been denied opportunities of education and employment over a long period of time. Some seats are reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in educational institutions and in government services. Some seats are reserved for other backward classes as well. Second, the Scheduled Castes and Tribes Act, that is Prevention of Atrocities Act. This is an important act for establishing social justice and equality. So Prevention of Atrocities Act, it was passed to establish a society based on social justice and equality. This act prevents any injustice done to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. And if anyone is found guilty of committing any act, is liable for punishment. The third point is provision for minorities. The Indian Constitution has made several provisions for the protection of minorities. The government adopted various policies for the minorities in education and employment. The Constitution has prohibited any form of discrimination on the basis of caste, religion, race, language, and region. And for protection of rights of minorities, the Constitution has adopted various measures like right to equality, freedom, right against exploitation, and cultural and educational rights. Our next point is laws for women. Several policies have been adopted in the post-independence period for empowering women at the national and international level. Provisions were made in the Constitution to provide opportunities for the progress of women. Many laws were passed to empower them. They are: right to equal share in the property of father and husband. Second, Dowry Prohibition Act. Third, Act Against Sexual Harassment. Fourth, Domestic Violence Prohibition Act. So these are some of the important provisions which create a favorable environment for protection of freedom of women and securing their development. Now we will study about the representation of women. In our country, from the very beginning, women have inadequate representation in politics and political institutions. Many countries in the world have made efforts to increase representation of women, and from this perspective, changes are taking place in India as well. The 73rd and the 74th Constitutional Amendment, it reserved 33% of seats for women in local self-governing bodies. And this reservation has been increased to 50% in Maharashtra and many other states. For mitigating injustice meted out to women, National Commission for Women has been established. Similarly, commissions were set up at the state level also. The Domestic Violence Prohibition Act, it underlined the need to protect the prestige and self-esteem of women. It also rejected any form of dominance and authoritarianism. The inhuman practices were banned by law and traditional dominance was refused, which gave momentum to the women liberation movement. Our third point in working of the Constitution is role of judiciary. Judiciary means system of courts that interprets and applies the law. The judiciary in India has played an important role in strengthening democracy as well as helping to make towards achieving the objectives of social justice and equality. While interpreting the provisions of the Constitution, the judiciary, it always takes into consideration the fundamental objectives of the Constitution as well as the intentions of the Constitution makers. So now we will try to understand the contribution of judiciary in this regard with the help of the 2 points, that is the basic framework of the Constitution and significant judicial decisions. Now let's see the basic framework of the Constitution. The Constitution is dynamic and is a living document. The Constitution has to change according to changing conditions, and the Parliament has a power to make these changes. The Judiciary has accepted this power of the Parliament to make changes in the Constitution, but at the same time specified the limitations of this power. The Judiciary has taken a stand that the Parliament, while changing the Constitution, it cannot alter the basic structure of the Constitution. Now we will study about the basic structure of the Constitution. First point, it is a republican and a democratic form of the government. That is, a state in which the supreme power is held by the people. Second, federal structure of the Constitution. Federal means it divides the power between the center and the state government. Third, promotion of unity and integrity of the nation. That is, these values have been promoted. Fourth, sovereignty of the nation. Sovereign means supreme power. And fifth, secularism and supremacy of the Constitution. What is secularism? Not related to any particular religion or spiritual matters, and that Constitution is only supreme. That is, Constitution is considered to be the highest power. Girls, please keep in mind, you have to study this basic structure of the Constitution, as it could be asked in the exam for a concept map. Next, we will study about significant judicial decisions. The protection that was provided to the citizens by fundamental rights in the Constitution, it has been made more meaningful through the various decisions that have been given by the judiciary. Some of the important subjects on which the court has given judgments, it includes rights of the children, protection of human rights, protection of the honor and dignity of women, individual freedom, and tribal empowerment. So these efforts, it has made the political process in India more mature. Now we shall study about features of good governance. Good governance means good government. First, accountable and responsible government. Whatever is taking place, the government should be accountable as well as responsible for it. Secondly, the government should handle the things effectively and efficiently. Third, government should handle things in a responsible manner. Fourth, there should be transparency in working of the government. Fifth, just and all-inclusive development. That is, the development should be in all the sections of the society and it should be fair. It is not that only a particular section of the society is been given more importance and the others have been neglected. So the development should be in all the areas. Last, people's participation in the governing and decision making process. That is, people should be included in the governing as well as the decision making process. Girls, you have to study these features of good governance properly, as this also could be asked in the exam for concept map. So in this lesson we have studied the Constitution and the working of the government on the basis of the Constitution. There are many challenges before India's democracy. Governments, acts and policies, they have not put an end to all the problems. Even if few problems end, there are many new problems which come before us. So, what is important over here is that the people in India have developed a democratic mindset. So, in the next lesson, we will study the election process in India. Assignment. Girls, you have to complete the concept map either on a paper or in a book. First one is laws related to the protection of freedom of women and securing their development. Second, basic principles enshrined in the Constitution. Third, characteristic of good governance. Please see to it that you all complete the assignments that have been given at the end of the lesson. Stay home, stay safe and take care of yourself. Thank you.